smile had seasons. I saw them all at once, lines that held old summers and winters I could trust. You looked at me like time slowed, not curious, not fast. Your eyes felt steady somehow, like doors already passed. You spoke with quiet patience, your voice didn't rush. I felt my shoulders lowering under your touch. Your smile had seasons, mine learned to stay. I felt safe in how you listened and the words you didn't say. Your smile had seasons, my heart felt seen, like something younger found its place inside something serene. Told a story halfway, then laughed before the end. I watched your hands explain things like they'd done this then. The room felt slower suddenly, chairs felt closer too. I noticed how the noise stepped back when I looked at you. You asked me what I believed in, not what I'd planned. I liked how you left space for answers I didn't yet understand. Question the difference, I only knew your smile had seasons, the right kind. I stood there holding eye contact and losing time. Comfort ever had a face, it looked like this. I stepped into a quiet moment. I didn't resist, just smile. Seasons, my breath slowed down. I felt something settle in me without a sound. Your smile had seasons. I didn't fall in love that moment, I just knew you. I packed memories in boxes, not things but days, folded moments carefully, the way you'd say. I lifted photos from the shelf, counted where we'd been. The room grew larger quietly as I packed them in. You watched from the doorway, said nothing at all. I felt how silence settles against the wall. Packed memories in boxes, soft, not rushed. I held our laughter gently, like something crushed. Packed memories in boxes, each one knew my name. I learned how endings whisper without blame. I wrapped small objects slowly, gave each one time. Your notes stayed folded between the lines. The floor learned new echoes with every step. I noticed how the air felt once I stopped. You asked if I needed help. Your voice stayed low. I said I had it covered and moved forward. Packed memories in boxes, the past stayed kind. I didn't fight believing, I lied. Packed memories in boxes, my hands felt sure. I learned how love can end, still pure. If holding on and hurting, this was right, I chose the weight of truth overnight. Packed memories in boxes, my breath stayed calm. I carried years between my hands with alarm. Packed memories in boxes, my steps felt clear. I didn't rush the goodbye, I stayed near. We tried being brave together, spoke in careful tones. You said love needed patience, stronger than bones. We sat close on opposite edges, of what we felt, holding words between us we never dealt. You said we could carry this if we stood still. I felt courage growing tired against our will. We tried being brave together, shoulder to shoulder. I held the moment gently while it grew colder. We tried being brave together, eyes looking ahead. I stayed inside your promise of what you said. You reached for my hand and paused, like fear had weight. I watched hesitation settle inside that space. You spoke about protecting me from years to come. I listened while the room slowly went numb. You said we were strong enough to face the sound. I felt bravery bending underground. We tried being brave together, standing tall. I smiled through uncertainty and needed fall. We tried being brave together. Your voice stayed sure. I trusted the effort, even unsure. If courage could stop erosion, this would hold. I learned how even bravery can feel whole. We tried being brave together. My breath stayed slow. I stayed inside the space you couldn't go. We tried being brave together, and I could see that love was still alive. Between our chairs sat something we didn't name aloud. The table felt much wider than the room allowed. Your hand stayed folded loosely, mine rested on my knee. The silence learned our outlines and stayed with me. You looked like you were thinking about a careful way to say what wasn't landing when words would stay. Between our cheers, the quiet grew. I spoke less often, so you could too. Between our chairs, the space stayed still. I felt how distance settles without will. You shifted once, then settled back, as if the moment moved. I watched the shape of absence become the truth. The light above the table lost its warmth somehow. I noticed how the present felt heavier now. You asked if everything was fine. Your voice stayed mild. I nodded while the space between us slowly piled. Between our chairs, no blame, no sound, just years and worry pressing down. Between our chairs, I stayed polite. I learned how silence answers every night. If closeness lived in talking, we'd still be near. I watched the space between us grew clear. Between our chairs, my heart slowed pace. I felt the future sitting in that space. Between our chairs, I stayed aware that love was still beside me, just not there. Your hand found mine without asking, fingers steady, worn smooth. Lines that carried other decades held me like they knew. Your palm felt calm and anchored, not rushed, not unsure. I noticed time inside your touch and somehow felt secure. I thought about the difference, then let the thought go by. Your grip felt present, honest, without asking why. hands older than mine, holding me still. I felt the weight of years and trusted it. Hands older than mine, warm, unafraid. I stood inside that moment and stayed. Your thumb traced small directions like memory had maps. You smiled when I looked up, as if you knew that gap. People passed without noticing. The quieter we became, the world kept moving quickly while ours stayed the same. I wondered if you noticed the way I slowed my pace, how holding you felt different, but not out of place. Hands older than mine, steady and sure. I felt no need to measure or compare. Hands older than mine, resting in time. I didn't feel younger than just a line. Spoke softly, it sounded like this, a language made of patience. I didn't resist. Hands older than mine taught mine to stay. I felt my pulse grow quieter that day. Hands older than your calm moved in. I didn't feel the years between us, just the skin. Older than mine, your calm moved in. I didn't feel the years between us, just the skin. You stood a little farther than you used to stand. Your voice stayed careful when I reached for your hand. You spoke about tomorrow like it needed space. I listened to the distance and the way you faced. You asked if I was certain, if I'd thought it through. I felt the room lean outward and step towards you. I held you anyway. When doubt arrived, I chose the present moment over time. I held you anyway. Your breath felt real. I stayed inside the feeling you tried not to feel. Your shoulders stayed tense briefly and slowly let go. I felt the weight you carried, even so. You said you didn't want to hurt me, said you were worried still. I answered with closeness instead of will. You warned me gently again about years ahead. I rested my forehead where fear was said. I held you anyway. Your pose felt true. I didn't argue with your reasons, I just stayed with you. I held you anyway. My arms knew I trusted what was real when you tried to deny. If love must choose a moment, this was mine. I learned how presence answers every line. I held you anyway. My voice stayed low. I stayed close to the truth you wouldn't show. I held you anyway. My heart stayed near. I chose us in that moment without fear. I stood a little longer than I needed to. My hands were holding air where they once held you. You waited for me to speak, but words stayed thin. I felt the ending settle under my skin. I knew this moment wasn't cruel, just true. I felt my chest open quietly as I looked at you. I released you with tears that didn't ask to fall. I let them move through my breathing without a call. You thanked me for understanding, your eyes stayed kind. I nodded while my heartbeat changed its mind. The room felt gentle suddenly, like at noon. Some goodbyes don't arrive loudly, they just do. I felt the love we carry loosen its grip. I stayed steady in believing of your fingertips. I released you with tears that felt clean. I let go without breaking what we did. I released you with tears. My steps stayed slow. I carry the love with me as I let you go. If love must end softly, this was right. I chose truth over holding back night. I released you with tears. My hands shook then. I stayed gentle with the ending. see where we went wrong. The past doesn't need defense to still feel strong. I let the memories stand as they were. No edits, no disguise. The way you looked at me sometimes still meets my eyes. I don't ask the ending now to justify the start. Some things don't need permission to live in the heart. Love was real anyway, even when it ended. I don't shrink the truth of us to feel protected. Love was real anyway, in heartfelt. I won't erase what held me just because it couldn't stay again. I remember laughter that I feared, quiet days that fit, your hand finding mine naturally, like it always did. The years between our hands never made it false. What we shared lived honestly, without a pause. I won't measure by length or how we closed. Some moments earn their meaning just because they're known. Love was real anyway. I felt it breathe. I stood inside it fully, and that's enough for me. Love was real anyway. No need to prove. I don't regret the choosing or the truth. If love must justify itself, but still stands, it lived between us honestly, an open hand. family asked carefully, not wanting to wound. Their voices stayed gentle, like they already knew. They spoke in half sentences, left space in the room. Concern wrapped in kindness and careful perfume. They asked if I felt steady, asked if I felt sure. I answered with calm words that felt less pure. My family asked carefully, their love felt wide. I stood between their worry and what lived inside. My family asked carefully, their eyes stayed kind. I held my truth in both hands and split my mind. They mentioned years and futures in a softened tone. They asked how I imagined growing older alone. I listened more than answered, kept my voice even. The table held our history on quiet questions. They said they trusted my heart, said they hoped I'd be fine. I nodded while feeling two clocks inside. My family asked carefully, their fear was real. I felt how love can pull you in different fields. My family asked carefully, no blame, no plea, just hope wrapped in concern. Looking back at me, if answers came easily, this wouldn't need. I carried every question home for my own sake. My family asked carefully, my chest felt tight. I held their love in yours the same night. My family asked carefully, and I stayed still. I loved you deeply and always will. My family asked carefully, and I stayed still. I loved you deeply and always will. My family asked carefully. 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 People looked twice at us and looked away. Their eyes stayed longer than words would say. I felt the space around us shift as we stood still. The room rearranged its distance against our will. You squeezed my hand a little tighter, like you felt it too. I tried to stand inside the moment and look at you. People looked twice at us. The air felt thin. I stayed close to your shoulder and held it in. People looked twice at us. Their silence aloud. I learned how judgment enters without a sound. A woman paused mid-step beside us, then moved on. A laugh landed strangely and was gone. I watched reflections in the glass learn our shape. I practiced calm in public places without escape. You asked if I was comfortable. Your voice stayed kind. I nodded even while I noticed the change in mine. People looked twice at us. The street grew wide. I walked beside you carefully, not to hide. People looked twice at us. My breath said without context, this wouldn't sting. I felt the weight of outside eyes on everything. People look twice at us, nightfall slow down. I showed your presence over every frown. People look twice at us, instead I stayed. I held your hand a little longer. I gave. You spoke about my future like it stood somewhere ahead. You framed it in soft caution, with careful words you said. You talked in wider timelines, in years I couldn't see. You said you worry quietly about what waits for me. You said love shouldn't limit what a life could become. I feel myself growing smaller while you stayed calm. You spoke about my future with concern, not doubt. I stood inside your kindness and felt myself fade out. You spoke about my future like I wasn't here. I listened through steady breathing and learned fear. You said I deserve freedom, space to choose my way. You asked me to imagine life without you someday. I watched your eyes avoid mine, as if that made it kind. Your voice stayed gentle this would feel right. I learned how kindness can still take away light. You spoke but got my future, and I stayed kind. I felt myself disappear between the lines. You spoke about my future like it was yours to say. I held my tears with steady hands and stayed brave. You spoke of streets I'd never walked, names I couldn't place, years that shaped your laughter, lines written on your face. I listened more than answered, let your past arrive. The room felt wider suddenly, as if those years were alive. You paused to see my reaction, like time needed consent. I stayed right where the story was and leaned in. Stories from before me, settling in your tone. I didn't feel like an outsider, listening alone. Stories from before me, your voice calm and slow. I held each moment carefully and let it go. You mentioned choices made early, turns you didn't plan, losses that taught you gentleness. Before you held my hand, I traced the edge of your sentences, noticing how you smiled, like memory had softened things with patience over miles. You said time teaches quietly what youth cannot see, and nodded like the lesson was meant for me. Stories from before me, resting in the air. I didn't feel the space between us, standing there. Stories from before me, your past felt kind. I didn't wish I'd known you then, just now felt right. made out of Libya walked into. Stories from before me, your truth held close. I felt no need to compete with what I chose. Stories from before me, your time felt real. I didn't borrow your history. I learned how to stories from before me, your time felt real. I didn't know your history. I learned how to feel. We walk slower together, didn't measure the ground. Your steps found a rhythm, that softened the sound. I noticed the city grew quieter, as if learning our speed. The world stopped pulling forward and waited for me. You smiled when I matched your pace, like nothing else was due. I felt time loosen its grip, walking next to you. We walked slower together. The day stayed wide. I didn't feel behind or ahead, just by your side. We walked slower together. My breath stayed calm. I trusted the way distance faded inside your arm. You pointed out small details, things I'd never seen. Cracks shaped like maps in sidewalks, parks in between. I liked how silence felt welcome, how words could rest. You didn't hurry my questions or need to impress. You said some things take time and some things wait. I felt the truth, man, gently in how we walked straight. We walked slower together, 'cause streetlights came on. I didn't notice the evening was nearly gone. We walked slower together. My thoughts felt kind. I wasn't racing toward anything, but leaving you behind. If love had a tempo, it moved like this, the pace that let me stay present and not ness. We walked slower together. stood without reaching. The evening stayed kind. The light rested gently on what we left behind. Your hands were familiar, mine knew their place. I felt the years between us without fear in my face. I didn't ask for answers or reasons why. The moment didn't need explaining to say goodbye. Years between our hands, resting in air. I felt the distance clearly and didn't despair. Years between our hands, soft, understood. I let this space exist the way it should. I remembered mornings that fit just right. Quiet conversations and shared light. Nothing we lived was borrowed, nothing was pretend. Some things arrive complete, even when they end. I don't measure love by length or how it stays. I carry truth more lightly these days. Years between our hands, no weight, no blame. I honored what we were without shame. Years between our hands, the past stood tall. I didn't need it to continue to mean it all. If love leaves quietly, this is enough. I stayed whole in the letting go and soft. Years between our hands, and still I stand. I loved you in the only way I can. Years between our hands, the sun goes down. You said I deserved more than what you could give. You framed it like protection, like teaching me to live. You spoke with careful certainty, your eyes stayed kind. I felt myself reduced to a future you defined. You said love shouldn't narrow what a life could be. I listened while the room slowly left me. You said I deserve more. Your voice stayed calm. I stood inside your reasoning and felt the harm. You said I deserved more, as if that was care. I held your words carefully and lost myself there. You talked about my years ahead as if they weren't mine. You drew a line through us with a gentle spine. I watched your hands explain things you'd already chosen. I stayed quiet in a moment while my chest felt open. You asked if I understood, if this makes sense. I nodded while my breathing learned the distance. You said I deserved more. Your tone felt sure. I stood beside the kindness that couldn't endure. You said I deserve more and looked away. I felt my present thinning as you spoke of death. If leaving could sound gentle, it sounded like this. I learned how love steps back without a kiss. You said I deserve more, and I stayed kind. I thought myself becoming a flaw you'd left behind. You said I deserve more and let me go. I held my tears with steady more and let me go. I held my tears with steady hand and moved slow. Your reflection felt far, even standing near. I saw you watching yourself instead of being here. You touched my arm carefully and let it go, like closeness asked a question you didn't know. Noticed how your smile arrived a second too late. The mirror held your attention more than my face. Your reflection fell far in the glass, in the light. I stood right in front of you and slipped from sight. Your reflection fell far, your eyes learned to hide. I stayed where love used to land and waited inside. You fixed your collar twice, checked the room behind, as if the future was calling from another time. I spoke and you nodded, but your focus moved like you were already leaving before you choose. You said you were just thinking, said nothing was wrong. I felt the distance forming, quiet and all. Your reflection fell far, your hands unsure. I learned how fear enters touch, so gentle but so pure. Your reflection fell far, your breath held back. I stood between what we were and what you If doubt could look like kindness, you look like this. I felt love hesitate and lose. Your reflection fell far, and I stayed close. I loved you through the moment. You loved me less. Your reflection fell far, my heart stayed kind. I watched you choose protection reflection fell far, and I stayed close. I loved you through the moment you loved me less. Your reflection fell far, my heart stayed kind. I watched you choose protection over your reflection fell